Coming up on 5 Minute News. UN chief visits Kiev as Russians send in missiles. Georgia bans divisive concepts in teaching about race. And Ethiopia hit by worst drought in 40 years. It's Friday, April 29. I'm Anthony Davis. Missiles were fired by Russia into Kiev during a visit by UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres on Thursday as Moscow pressed an assault in the east that drew US pledges of military and humanitarian aid. The rocket shook the central Shevchenko district in Ukraine's capital, and one of them struck the lower floors of a 25-story residential building, injuring at least 10 people, Ukrainian officials said. Russia withdrew its invading forces from near Kiev in early April, after failing to capture the city, which has since hosted visits by top officials from the United States and its European allies. But Thursday's blasts, heard soon after Guterres completed talks with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, highlighted concerns that Kiev still remains vulnerable to Russian heavy weaponry. Zelensky said the blasts prove that we must not drop our vigilance. We must not think that the war is over. Guterres' discussions with Zelensky focused in part on evacuating Ukrainian fighters and civilians holed up in a steel plant in the besieged southeastern city of Mariupol, Russia's main target in the eastern Donbass region. Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed in principle to UN and Red Cross involvement in evacuating the plant during talks in Moscow with Guterres on Tuesday. Ukrainian officials worry Russia wants to capture those trapped inside, an allegation Moscow denies. The West believes battles for Mariupol and other eastern and southern areas may determine the war's outcome. Russian forces are now entrenched in the east, where Moscow-backed separatists have held some territory since 2014, and also hold a swathe of the south they seized in March. Georgia has joined a growing number of Republican-led U.S. states to ban schools from teaching what they call divisive academic concepts about racism. The measures are part of a movement among conservatives targeting the teaching of critical race theory, an academic theory that looks at structural racism in U.S. institutions that is not generally taught at the elementary or high school level. Here in Georgia, our classrooms will not be pawns to those who indoctrinate our kids with their partisan political agendas, Republican Governor Brian Kemp said at a bill signing ceremony in Cumming, Georgia on Thursday. He claimed the package of bills protects the fundamental right of mums and dads across this state to direct the education of their child. The bills prohibit any instruction that asserts that the United States is fundamentally racist or that says individuals should feel anguish, guilt, or any other form of discomfort or stress because of their race. Several states, including Texas, Arizona, and Oklahoma, have passed similar bans. Most don't mention critical race theory by name. The once obscure academic concept, taught only in specific university modules, has sparked school board protests and is largely misunderstood among the general public. Conservatives have invoked the terms in schools and state houses nationwide to denounce curricula and policies they consider too liberal, whilst liberals have said the bans are tantamount to academic censorship. Georgia Democrats tweeted on Thursday afternoon with pictures of a rally with signs reading, "No banning books. We won't stand by quietly as Kemp attacks teachers, censors what's taught in classrooms, and politicizes our schools," they said. Kemp is seeking re-election this year. Ahead of a May 24th primary, polls have shown him holding a comfortable lead over Donald Trump's preferred candidate, former U.S. Senator David Perdue, despite Trump's frequent criticisms of the incumbent governor. In Georgia, the same bill that bans divisive concepts when teaching about race or history also sets up a commission to oversee school sports, opening the door to prohibiting transgender students' participation, as Republicans lurch to the far right as a pretext for fundraising ahead of the midterm elections. Malnourished children are flooding into the pediatric ward of the main hospital in Ethiopia's Goad City as the worst drought for 40 years has forced many families to leave their homes to search for aid. Pediatrician Mohammed Amin said that numbers started to spike around 5 months ago. So far, we have treated 140 malnourished children, and from this, 4 have died, he said. This figure is only those who came to us and got treatment, and doesn't include those in the camp. Last year, the hospital received 188 malnourished children, but now they saw that in a single month, he said, adding that many families were arriving with several malnourished children. The Horn of Africa region is facing the driest conditions in more than 4 decades, as climate change rages and after 3 consecutive rainy seasons failed, according to the United Nations World Food Programme. The programme said around 15 million people need food in the Horn of Africa, a figure that could rise to 20 million by the end of the year. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.